All right, everybody, welcome to the Hounds Tales podcast. I'm sure you have noticed the title of this episode. I'm going to give a little preemptive before we get started in this episode. It's a great two-parter episode. Right here before hunting season starts, or deer dog season starts here in the state of Virginia. I don't want anybody to get get confused on what's going on with this podcast. For one, I do want to apologize. I know a lot of y'all, the listeners, are wanting to hear guests on here that are in the hound hunting world, and there's been a lot of requests made. I have reached out to as many as I can. I'm working on them, getting time set. Some of the guys are not wanting to talk, and that's perfectly their right. I completely understand, and there's no ill will that way about that. But I'm trying my best to get some more guests on here to talk dogs, to talk field trialing, and I promise that is coming. So y'all just bear with me on that. But this one I thought was extremely important. I didn't get to talk about it in the last two episodes, and I wanted to address, I guess you could say, the elephant in the state. We'll put it that way. A few weeks ago, the DWR had their last meeting of the year, and they voted on regulations 6 and 7. For those that don't know, regulation 6 was, and I'm going to just briefly touch on these as exactly what they are. I'm not going to read the exact writing, but number 6 was the mandate of tracking collars on dogs when turned loose. And that was turned down for multiple reasons. And then number 7 was pretty much a hound dog trespass, which was isolated strictly to deer and bear hounds. And that was thankfully voted down. It was very ill worded. It was not very good. It was not a very good regulation that was trying to be put in play. I don't think it would have done any good. And that was a common consensus amongst landowners and houndsmen alike, that it was going to do more damage than it was good. So thankfully the DWR stepped up, did the right thing on this. Let's get back to this episode with where we're going with this. After the DWR meeting, I stuck around and had conversations. I spoke with landowners, I spoke with hunters, I spoke with houndsmen, I spoke with the DWR board members, I spoke with game wardens, I spoke with as many people as I could that were willing to talk. And y'all, there's a lot of common ground that can be found just by having simple conversations. The gentleman that's going to be on the episode tonight, and we'll talk, and he'll introduce himself in the episode, he was one of the key ones that I really took notice to. We had have conversations before the meeting, and his speech during the meeting, it's very, very funny. You can go back and listen to the recording of the DWR meeting. His speech almost mimicked mine. It was a call for respect. It was a call for communication. It was a call for finding relations between landowners and houndsmen. And I think that's what we need to get to. And that's the point of this episode. This episode is promoting a positive spin on deer hunting with hounds, bear hunting with hounds, and the relations between those houndsmen and landowners. And that's not just, and I'm not isolating it down to just deer hunters and bear hunters. Every houndsman needs to be responsible, and we have to find the respect that we used to have. I don't want anybody to take away from this episode the wrong thing. I don't want anybody to look at this episode and say, well, James is anti-dog hunting. James is blaming the houndsman. James is saying that all we're doing is doing the wrong things. No, I'm not. There's multiple times in this episode where I make sure I defend houndsmen. I also discredit some things that are going on both sides. Guys, this one's worth a listen. I think this one's going to be a very... I don't think it's going to stir the pot. it's not the point of this episode. The point of this episode is to unite everybody. And we'll talk about it more in this episode. We need to get back to the way things were back in the day when everybody knew who everybody was and showed just that was the main goal of being out there, was just showing respect to each other. I feel like that's been lost both directions, guys. Not just houndsmen, but landowners. Landowners have to show respect to houndsmen as well. And that's what this episode about. And this is where we want to see the future of hound hunting go in the state of Virginia and all over the country. And I'm hoping we can make some positive strides with episodes like this, and with landowners and houndsmen sitting down, having conversations like this, and trying to find common ground and executing goals together. That's how we save this sport, ladies and gentlemen. Not by fighting it in Congress, not by fighting it in the DWR. It's acting like freaking people again, sitting down and having conversations with each other. So guys, y'all sit back, enjoy this episode, and please take heed, share it away. If you like what you heard, let me know. If you didn't like what you heard, let me know too. I'd like to know what people's opinions are on this episode. I'd like to know what people think about this. And I really want to help find those relations and get those relationships back like we used to back in the day when I was a kid. So guys, without further ado, y'all sit back, hold on tight. Let's drop the gate, guys. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds Tales podcast. This is your home for field trialing and deer dog hunting. It'll be stories and discussions on the world of dog hunting. So let's drop the gate, cast your hounds, and get ready for another episode of the Hounds Tales podcast. When it's time to get ready for a field trial, deer season, or any other reason that you need to load up that dog box and you're in need of dog hunting supplies, look no further than Outdoor Dog Supply. Outdoor Dog Supply is the leader in online Garmin sales, as well as the leader in Garmin and Tritronics trade-in programs. From GPS system to dog training aids to vitamins and supplements and everything in between. Put your trust in Outdoor Dog Supply. Super fast delivery, superior customer service, and a dedication to our sport. We are proud to partner with Outdoor Dog Supply and can't thank them enough for everything that they do for our sport. Visit their website today at outdoordogsupply.com or shoot them a call at 757-482-1000 for any of your hound hunting needs. Thank you, Outdoor Dog Supply. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds Tales podcast. Tonight, this is going to be a special one, guys. And I always say tonight, it's actually whatever time of the day you're listening to it. I always record at night, so it makes me say that. But this one's going to be special, guys. This is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I feel like this is a very important thing that needs to happen with the hound hunting community. And I am blessed to be joined by Mr. Ray Carter. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Good, sir. And you?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Mr. Carter is a landowner here and a hunter in the state of Virginia. And we have been to, I know he's been to quite a few of the DWR meetings, and I've spoke and or been at a lot of the meetings. And from the outside looking in, you could think that we are both on opposite sides, but in the grand scheme of things, especially after me and him finally got to actually talk, we have a lot of common ground, and we want to save the hound hunting sport. And I think it's a good thing of, how do I say this? Us getting together and talking, having these conversations like we're about to have, I think are things that need to happen. So without trying to take away from the whole episode, I'll kind of turn it over to you, Mr. Carter, just here for a little bit. Kind of just give us an introduction, who you are, where you're from.
I mean, I'm Raymond Carter. I'm from King William County, Virginia. I was born and raised here. So I take it a little bit serious on our hunting heritage, and
Yes.
as landowners as well. I see both sides of the spectrum. We're
Right.
glad to be here to talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you joining me again. I think this is going to be a big one. I really do. And like you said, and you're not a transplant.
No, no.
We've joked about that before. You're a lifelong landowner in Virginia and a lifelong hunter in Virginia.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I kind of like I talked about, as we're coming into this thing, the whole purpose of this is, Mr. Carter's not a houndsman. He is he does just normal style hunting, still hunting, whatever you want to call it. He's a landowner, and he wants respect of his property, but he wants to show respect as well, and I think that's huge. There's always a big tiff, and is a narrative that's being pushed from both sides, and it's pitting each other against one another. After me and Mr. Carter have talked quite a few times now, we have found that there is common ground to be found, and I think finding this common ground is how we're going to make hound hunting stay around, not only in Virginia but all the other surrounding states, the ones that still have deer hunting with dogs and any other form of dog hunting. So that's why we're here. We're here to kind of talk about those common grounds. Me and it's kind of a funny story. I forgot who I was telling it to, and you correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. I think you had one of us had messaged each other. I can't remember who it was. I think you may have reached out to me or something and was talking about trying to do something with the podcast or promote it. And we were doing a lot of messaging on Facebook back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was real funny. Like, it started off good, and then it got to, you could tell the conversation got tense. And it was getting kind of like, okay, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. And we were starting to talk in exclamation points and capital letters and stuff like that. We both were like almost at the same time. It was real funny. We were both like, hang on. Can we just call each other? Let's talk. Let's talk like human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much the way it went. We had to talk like human beings. We forget that with today's technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's a barrier that we have to overcome.
Right.
So,
Right. And that's the biggest thing. People can be, you can be behind a screen, sit at a keyboard, peck away at your phone, but you don't hear expression. You don't hear sincerity, you don't hear anger, whatever the expression is, you don't hear it, and it's very easy to get misled into a different direction that was not even trying to go.
that's true. We end up chasing rabbits.
That's right. That's right. All right, so let's kind of move into this thing. I won't waste no whole lot of time. Let's get into the main issue, man. Let's get into the main issue. I'll kind of, I've been kind of rambling on for a few minutes here. Let's talk about the constant battle that seems to be between the houndsmen and the landowners. And I'm going to refer to you as landowner for most of this conversation, and that's not me trying to pinpoint you as just a landowner. I understand that you're a hunter, and you take it from a landowner/hunter perspective as well, but when I refer to you as a landowner, please don't take that the wrong way. It's just, it's instead of saying landowner/hunter every time.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We have to see all sides of the spectrum.
That's right. So, I kind of want to hear it from your side. What are some of the situations that you've seen personally here, that have kind of got you involved with all this?
I've had a trespasser on my property that retrieved a doe without getting permission while armed. That's a definite no-go, and the land is clearly posted. Could have come and asked me, and I would have said, yeah, but they chose not to. I've had a guy standing in front of my driveway, right in my driveway, and block it and basically tell me just ignore what he's doing. I mean, let's keep that on the more professional terms of that.
Right. Right.
He just, basically told me to pound sand on my own land.
Yeah.
But what drives it is I'm a hunter and a landowner, and I take pride. I grew up in Virginia hunting, and I want to see hunting continue. I don't want to see him driven out by others, and this is by lack of respect, by lack of communication. We're all grown people. We're all grown men and women. The common courtesy is just walking up to somebody, shaking their hand, say, "Hey, sir, how you doing? My name is Raymond Carter," and you saying, "My name is James," and we basically come together and talk it out and say, "Hey, man, I noticed you got this nice piece of property over here. Do you hunt at all?" "Yeah, hunt." "You seen any good deer?" "Yeah, I've seen some." "You mind if I take and hunt some over here?" And I say yes or no. And
Right.
we walk away with an understanding of where we all stand.
Simple as that.
It's common courtesy and respect. That's the basic bottom line of it.
Right. And and like you said, and I guess and I'll play devil's advocate. I guess I'll kind of put it from the Houndsman side, and I will say before I get into the Houndsman side, the guys blocking driveway and retrieving deer like you're saying that happened. That's not right. That's not right. That's nothing that should ever happen, especially if the retrieving the deer is not right. That 110% should never happen. And then the blocking the driveway, that's just insane. That's just downright disrespectful.
The sad part is I got pictures of it. It's, on trail cameras. And that's the sad part about it is that there's proof out there, and I know that some people claim that there's no proof. Or say that these guys make it up. It's not all made up. Some
Right.
of it is 100% accurate. It's just unbelievable, but then because you're not doing it, you're not seeing it yourself.
Right.
When you're not
Right.
the one putting with their boots on the ground, the other thing, and I don't want to digress, but
Yeah.
when you offer to help a man retrieve his dog and he tells you basically, "Oh, just let the dog come back," but the dog is so many yards from you, and you say, "Oh, I'm right here, you're right here. Why don't I just push the dog to you?" And he tells you, "Don't worry about it." And that situation had happened before, and I guess I could tell a better story on that one, but I'll just leave it at there was a gentleman that was in my driveway, and he said his dog was down about where my house is at in the wood line, and I said, "Well, I ain't seen a dog, but I'll go back there and I'll push him back your way." And he said, "Don't worry about it. Just let him run."
Yeah.
After he said he was on my property to retrieve the dog.
Right.
And he did not identify himself. And I think that's where the biggest misunderstanding is if we're willing to work together, if I'm willing to help you get your dog, at least show me some respect on my own property.
That's right.
To say,
That's right.
Basically, thank you for your help. Maybe he'll come back on his own, but if you catch him, give me a call. Number's on the collar.
Right.
Or,
Right.
"Hey, what's your name?" So I can call you or tell one of these guys that's right here on the road that I got your dog by name, so he knows. And you can't even get that out of a guy.
Yeah, that's not right.
It's not, because nobody wants to lose a dog that I know of. Those dogs, some of them are pride and joy.
Right. Oh yeah, 100%. I know. I know if it was me and I was sitting there, and I would be asking, "Hey, can I come help you catch them?" Or, what can I do to help the situation? Not just let him go. If he's managed to be on your property and I know you don't, that's not where, and I'll respect your wishes. If you don't want the dog there, then if somehow he did end up there, then I'm going to do whatever it takes to get him off of your property, not say, just let him go and see what happens kind of thing. That's not, I don't like that.
I hunt. I don't want my hunt impeded, and I don't want their hunt impeded either.
Right, exactly. But, and I've made remarks in the past, and I've been called out on some of my remarks about the impeding on a hunt if a landowner stops the chase and impeding on the hunt. And that was a very ill-worded comment that I probably should not have made. I don't know that was the right choice of vocabulary or the right choice of direction to take on the situations that were at hand. But I would never, once it gets off of our block, if it does sneak on, if they do end up chasing a deer onto another piece of land, it's not our responsibility to keep the chase going. It's our responsibility to stop the chase, and in any kind of way that we can. And if it comes onto your land, it's not our responsibility to try to let the game get pushed through your land. It's our responsibility to, if it does stop on your land, that we have to take that course of action and get the dogs up as fast as we can, within our legal rights.
Agreed. I agree with that. Within the legal parameters of it. But
Right.
if you see a landowner out there in his property, stop that landowner and ask him, out of common courtesy, hey, look, I got a dog run through. Do you mind if we go get this dog? And if the landowner offers to help, let the landowner help. It's his property. He knows it better than you do.
That's it. That's
You
it.
know?
Well, it's so funny, 9 times out of 10, and it happens. It does happen. We do our best as houndsmen to keep dogs on our block. We do the best that we can to keep them on the properties that we're allowed to. But there are times that, a big buck does like to run straight, and it gets the heck out of Dodge sometimes, and accidents happen. They end up on people's property. And almost every single time it's been, I think I can only truly think about 1 or 2 times in my entire life of deer dog hunting that I can think of. I didn't go and knock on that person's door and say, hey, I've got a deer dog back here. He got turned around. He's stuck back here on your property. I can't seem to get him to come out. Do you mind if I go get him? Most of the time, I'm getting in the truck with the landowner, and he's taking me back there right to where we need to go.
Yeah,
It's just that little bit of respect. Showing him, going up to the door and saying, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't make an inconvenience, but this is what's going on. Can I go back there? And most of the time, these landowners are like, shoot, get in the truck, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's go. Let's go get them. Let's go make sure your dog's safe, and let's go take care of this, and we'll be just fine.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to just mutual respect and mutual aid of each other.
That's right.
I mean, we either treat each other like neighbors or we treat each other like strangers. And unfortunately, I mean, I've been in Virginia for a long time. I mean, other than when I was in the Army and gone for a while. Basically, people used to, back in the day when I was coming up, we used to go to each other's house and knock on the door and say, hey, how you doing? Can I get permission to hunt your property? And 9 times out of 10, the landowner would say, yeah. When I was growing up and coming up as a young hunter, we always asked the landowner permission before we went hunting because it was common respect. We knew each other, though. And the big problem today is you and I had this conversation on the phone. We don't all know who was in our neighborhood coming down to hunt or the new guy who owns the land.
Right.
You don't know that new landowner. There's
Right.
no effort made on a side to say, who are you? I mean, you're the new landowner. Can I get permission to hunt on your land? It's, I've done this for so long. I'm just going to take, I mean, in some cases, I'm not saying all of them.
Right.
In some cases, they just say, I've had permission to hunt here for a day, for a big day. Well, that guy's moved on. He's sold that land up, or he's broken that land up into parcels. Now belongs to somebody else. That permission's not the same as it was when that guy owned that land, because he gave up all those rights to that land.
That's right. That's right. And we've ran into situations like that before, and it's a very easy thing to not take advantage of, but to, how do I say it? To let slip, I guess would be the best way to put it. We've had certain situations where we've had permissions to hunt a little piece of land. We could stop there, catch dogs, or we could shoot, whatever we needed to do in these certain blocks of land. And, once the guys give us permission, we kind of roll with it, and we're like, okay, yeah, we're good. And 98% of the time, that's exactly how it is. Like you said, as long as nothing has changed hands. But we've had situations before where that landowner had passed away. I know that's the most recent one I could think of, is that landowner had actually passed away. And we honestly we didn't know. That guy had given us permission 20, 30 years ago to stop there and catch dogs and was perfectly fine with it. Well, in the past couple of years, I think at the time that the situation happened, it was like 2 years, had passed, and the guy was had passed and gone, and we had no idea. Nobody had really talked to the man, but he was kind of a quiet guy. And, the Hounds podcast is proud to partner with Cajun Lights, who have jumped on board to support the field trialing community. Do you have nighttime field trials? Pleasure running at night? When you need to catch that next crossing at night, put your trust in Cajun Lights. Cajun Lights is a made-in-America product out of North Carolina who has been in business for over 25 years. These are cap-style and bucket hat headlamps to free up that extra hand for your voice recorder or your GPS. Whether it's the Cajun Micro Gator for those late-night feeds, the cost-efficient Cajun Bayou for pleasure running, or the top-level Cajun Blinder for field trials, never miss a thing with these amazing lights. All the lights come with a 2-year warranty and a lifetime labor warranty. These guys are excited to get into our sport, ladies and gentlemen, so be sure, if you see me at Hunt, come ask me about them. I'll have one of each style on hand ready to show you. You can visit their website at CajunLights.com, and their phone number is 888-773-3080. Thank you, Cajun Lights, for coming on board with the Hounds Tales podcast. Now let's get back to the show. And, we stopped there and was catching dogs, and it was actually me. I was stopped there catching dogs. Next thing I know, I see a car fly up on me and gets out and cussing me for everything it's worth, and like, you don't have permission to be here. And I'm like, hold on a second, I thought we always had permission. And the guy's like, no, that was my dad or grandpa or something like that. And he's like he passed away 2 years ago. He's like, I don't want y'all here no more. Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
We never knew. But at that same time, that goes back to the respect thing. Like, that guy didn't need to get out and start cussing me either, you know what I mean?
No, he didn't, but some people are not going to react that way. I mean, you got a guy standing there with a gun, and you got a guy running up, seeing these guys standing there, and he's like, I want you off my property. Some people don't react, and nobody ever does. We all get hot-headed at times. Young guys, old guys, we all get hot-headed, and it escalates. And unfortunately, it escalates more often than not.
Yeah, yes, correct.
There could be times, like the example what happened in my driveway. The guy said, I don't need your help getting my dog, basically, and I've been doing this for a while now. And I said, my response to that, this is my land, and you have not been doing this for that long because this is mine.
Right.
And he said, his buddy with him said, man, just get in the truck, let's go. And they left.
Right.
Without retrieving the dog. I never saw that dog. And I'm not gonna it's neither here nor there.
Right.
The problem is the incident that happened while that was going on. Mm-hmm. And we can avoid a lot of that just by common courtesy. If you see a man walking down the driveway, you automatically assume that man is the landowner of that property. You can brace yourself for one of two things. If he comes out hot, you can try and de-escalate the situation, just like I could as a landowner. If I saw somebody, if they're not obviously broken down, they're not obviously in a wreck, and they're standing on my property, I can go, hey, man, what's going on? How are you? Right. And if I ask you who you are, by law, you're required to tell me who you are.
Correct.
And we forget that. Yep. Because you'll get told, I'm not going to tell you my name, but by law, they're legally required to.
Yep.
I mean, there are codes out there that we are all not familiar with. They can all bite us in the fourth point of contact.
And I'm actually, I want to double check myself on this. Let's see. Yeah. So, and we can kind of get back into this a little bit later. I can't remember if I had this. We talk about this but even in the right to retrieve law, for the state of Virginia, at the very end of it, it says. Any person who goes on the prohibited land to retrieve his dogs, falcons, hawks, or owls in pursuit or house pursuant to this section, and who willfully refuses to identify himself when requested by the landowner or his agent is guilty of a Class 4 misdemeanor.
Absolutely.
There it is right there. You have to identify yourself.
That and the fact that vehicles are, a lot of people try to get ahead of the dogs with trucks or ATVs and UTVs. and they end up on other people's property. And not many people, coming from a landowner's perspective, you don't want somebody else's vehicle in your property because you're the one fixing the damage. You're the one fixing, and I'm not saying all of the trucks damage things, but by law they're required to leave those vehicles and those firearms or bows and arrows at the tree line, on the land that they're permitted to hunt on.
Right.
They're supposed to do that. That does not always happen, and that leads to a confrontation as well.
Right.
Who wants to deal with an armed man on their property? Are you going to be nice to somebody who's armed on your property?
True.
Are you going to be nice to somebody who speeds up your driveway, kicking up your gravel, or driving in your field?
Right.
Are you going to be nice about that? We all got to look at the situation.
Yep, that's right. And and it's such a sad thing too, because I'm a huge advocate for the right to retrieve. I know the right to retrieve has a lot of animosity towards landowners, but there are certain situations, and I'll defend the houndsmen on this side. And don't get me wrong, I think if the right to retrieve is misused and abused, it is a terrible, terrible thing. It is the most awful thing that you could ever think of. There's no reason people should be able to just go on somebody's property without permission. And I think it does need tweaking. But there are certain situations, for instance, last year, I don't remember the entire story word for word, verbatim off the top of my head, but I know the guy that had 2 of his dogs killed. I think it was 2, if I'm not mistaken. It was a big story. It was a big to-do. If the right to retrieve was not able to be used, that guy never would have known what happened to his dogs, because by the time he got down there, the collars were already in, if I'm not mistaken, and I may have to edit this out because I may be telling you wrong. I have to double check myself on this, but pretty sure that the collars were already off of the dogs were dead, and everything was in a burn barrel. It was about to be set on fire to destroy all evidence. And if the right to retrieve was not in play, or it was not in action, they never would have been. They never would have found them. There never would have been charges being able to be pressed against the landowner that shot the dogs, wrongfully shot the dogs too. There was no livestock. There was no damage done. There was no chasing of people or nothing like that. It was a malicious killing of 2 dogs, and the landowner removing collars and trying to destroy property.
So I don't know. I'm not too 100% familiar with that one, because it's an ongoing case.
Right.
From what I understand. Right. I've only seen what I've seen in the newspapers, and I'll just leave it at this. The removal of collars in itself is wrong.
Yes.
And I don't know the full story, so I don't want to even speak on that story. So I'm not going to guess on it.
Right.
Because that would put both of us in a bad position.
Right.
But
right.
I will say, removal of collars, a lot of landowners don't, if they don't read the hunting regulations, they don't know. And just like hunters, we assume things don't change from year to year, and we know they do.
Right.
We know it changes.
Yeah.
But I will say, as far as like the laws go, and the code, there's also codes that say once you reach a certain level, like in that right to retrieve, the civil action can be taken against the individual. It does not absolve the hunter from being gone after civilly. There's other things that can happen. But if you're driving a vehicle during that time frame, or you're driving an ATV, or you're carrying a firearm, you just threw right to retrieve out the window.
Out the window. Yep, 100% out the window.
And that's a big thing that we got to push for.
Right.
Is understanding from both sides of the house, and education. The DWR kept saying education and outreach. We all say it too, education and outreach.
Right.
It can't be one-sided education. It has to be education on both sides.
Yes,
both sides
100%.
have to be open to listening and talking to one another.
Right.
And that communication has to be there. And that's why I agreed to talk to you like we are right now.
Yeah.
Is because the education and outreach needs to happen on both sides of the party.
Correct.
We all have to have the hard discussions. We don't know everybody that comes in our county to hunt. We don't know everybody that is going to our neighbor's house on any other given time, and that's it's really none of my business who my neighbor sees or does what they do. But it is my business when it affects my property.
That's right.
Impedes my hunt or impedes the traffic around the area that we have to get in and out of.
Right.
Right. The other thing is that the dog. When it comes to dog hunting. Dog hunting's been a volatile situation for the last few years because the lack of respect and lack of communication that has gone on. That's the bottom line up front. It's both sides giving the middle finger, both sides unwilling to look at each other and say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Or how are you doing this?
Yep.
And I think that, that one thing that would help is we go back to the basis of getting written permission from the landowners. That way we have proof of permission to hunt. We go out and shake hands and meet these guys rather than pointing fingers at each other and going, We're
going to take a quick second here and interrupt this episode and let you all know about our friends over at Southern Hound Hunting Magazine. Do you enjoy reading stories from houndsmen across the country? Diving into real-life experiences out there in the woods with working hounds of every kind. Deer dogging, bear dogging, hog dogging, small game dogging, you name it, the Southern Hound Hunting Magazine has it. And it's bringing it to you page after page while also spreading a positive image of this beautiful sport that we all love. Be sure to sign up today, and for just $15 a year, you can have quarterly magazines filled with nothing but dog hunting sent right to your door. Check them out today at southernhoundhunting.com and get in the hunt. Let's get back to the episode.
Let me say this in a better way. Instead of telling each other to get bent,
yes,
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or just bend over and take it.
Right.
We got to work together. Hunting has been around forever and a day. Neanderthals hunted. I'm not even gonna bring anybody else into it. No, none of the George Washington cliches or anything like that into it. But
I wasn't even gonna say it.
Hunting has been a part of human and even animals hunt. We all hunt some way.
Yeah.
It's changed over the years. How we do it, what we do. We're not roaming the plains looking for massive buffalo herds.
Right.
We are here trying to contain what's on the property that we're allocated and we're allowed to hunt on, that we own or that we lease.
Right.
And I'll stress this: I think one of the bigger disconnects is we tend to blame each other, but we forget who actually gives the permission to hunt on the property.
Yep.
We forget that part. And without private land to hunt, what are you going to hunt? You're going to hunt WMAs? You're going to hunt public land?
Right.
And I've hunted public land.
I've hunted trying to do the thing.
And it's not been it's never been pretty hunting public land.
No.
Unless I'm duck hunting, it's never been pretty.
Right. I seen a TikTok earlier today where it was a guy up in a tree stand on public land, and he looked across about 50, 60 yards away from him, and there was a guy sitting there watching a you could tell that he was watching an adult video. We'll leave it at that. And he's like, if this isn't public land hunting in a nutshell, that's what it is. I couldn't imagine. And going back, I want to touch on the written permission thing. I don't know how a lot of other clubs do it. I know I can speak for our club and the surrounding areas around us. Usually, if we don't have written permission, it's not land that we don't go on. Unless they are members of the family, that family is in the hunting club, or those family members are in the hunting club, and we can just jump on the CB real quick and say, hey, are they still cool if we go in here? And it's a yes, and we go in there and do what we need to do, whatever permissions that they do give us. Sometimes it is just go in there, catch your dogs, get the hell out of Dodge, and sometimes it's Yeah, go in there, shoot the deer, and bring it to the guy's front door and show it off when you get done with it. You know, sometimes it's those situations.
I remember we used to share hindquarters. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yes,
You share some
yes.
deer meat. If the
Yeah.
landowner hunted, or wanted deer meat, you give him some deer meat, and you were good to go.
Yep. Yep. We got a guy that lets us hunt. I mean, he's got hundreds of acres that surround a couple of, one of our leased properties. And, that's his situation. He's like, y'all can hunt it all you want to. He's like, but somebody bring me some backstrap before the end of the year. He said, that's all I asked for. He said, y'all bring me some of that tender meat. He's like, and y'all can hunt it all you want to. I don't care. He's an older guy. He's in his 80s. He really doesn't care, but he loves to taste deer meat. He's like, I'm too old to get out there and do it myself. He's like, y'all, please. I don't care if you still hunt it, dog hunt it. I don't care what you do in it. He said, kill everything you see and bring me some deer meat. That's all I ask. But it's those situations like that right there. Just talk to the people. I mean, we had a guy move in just up the road up here a couple years ago. The guy built a house on some land. We had never had permission to hunt it before. Well, I saw him. He was building the house, and I went up, and I finally saw the car parked there one day after the house was built, and I went up and talked to him. Turns out it was an old soccer coach of mine. And he's like, dude, y'all come on. He's like, I'll have a flag up at the fence post behind the house. He's like, if there's a flag up, I'm hunting. Don't come back there. He said, if not, he's like, y'all just knock on the door as you come by, say, hey, you got dogs coming back through here, and I'm gonna say, go on for it. Go have fun. And it worked out. And then that guy actually sold the property. I talked to the next landowners, and they're like, well, we don't really want hunting, but if you get dogs, that get stuck over here, just come knock on the door, and y'all can walk back there at any time. We don't really care. Just let us know that you're here. Yeah, but if freaking houndsmen will do something as simple as that right there, think about how many situations can be fixed.
Exactly, and that's what I said before. If you just reach out, hunting season is a short season. It is in all reality. Depends on what you're hunting, what species you're hunting. But come knock on that door or see that man out there. Hey, can I do you mind if I do this?
Right.
Well, before it's a situation where you're at each other's throats,
right,
standing there on that land.
Right.
And now the DWR is involved, local law enforcement is involved, and you got a ruckus going on, and then you're pointing fingers, and then it's like, oh, go back where you come from, you come here, or something like that.
Yeah. Right.
And you look at this person, and you go, I saw your truck parked in town at a house for a week straight.
Right.
Right. So you telling me to go back where I come? I live here on this land, in this rural area.
Right.
I've seen your truck, 1,000 times, enough to know what it looks like.
Right.
In town, parked at that house. So we got to get away from that mentality.
I agree. I agree.
And stop living up to the stereotypes that are out there.
Yes. And that's one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on. I wanted to give, from the beginning of this, we're talking about the constant battles between them. It's, I think that's a huge battle. There's such a narrative pushed on houndsmen and
landowners
and both sides, 100%. And it's like the houndsmen are the guys that go out and just do whatever the heck they want, and the landowners are the guys that bring these crazy freaking stories. I can't say that some are, that all are false and some are, all are true. I don't know, but some of them just sound so freaking outrageous. It's so hard to believe. But then you hear the stories of the houndsmen that are like, God, did y'all really freaking do this?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's at some point, it's like, it's just storytelling at some point, and it just becomes I've been saying for a long time, since I started getting more into the DWR meetings, people need to be sworn in under oath or something like that at these things. Like, you need to be held accountable for lying, because some of these stories, and it's both sides. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but both sides.
So when a guy whips out a video that shows that outrageous thing that happens, or some pictures of these guys lined up in a road, or standing there with firearms in a road, on a secondary road,
right?
Or a landowner going out there flipping his wig and just just
Right.
tearing up the dirt road, kicking rocks and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, it goes for both sides. Both sides
Correct.
are a little extreme at times.
Correct. Yep.
It lives up to the stereotype and all the hype, and you're like, there's no way that happened. But it's right there in front of me. I can't even. It's like a train wreck you can't turn away from.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, and it just builds and builds until we have the fallouts that we have.
Yep. Yep.
And because some of us don't want to believe the reality of the situation because it's unbelievable, but it's real.
Right.
And then again, you get some guys who will be out there just to see their name and fame for 15 minutes. And they'll put something out there just to do it.
Yep.
And I got that, and I understand that. But
Yep.
that in reality, some of these landowners, based off of what I've seen and what I've experienced myself, we're not telling the tall tales. And I'm seeing where hound hunters are not telling the tall tales either in some ways.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But we got to come together. You and I talked about this.
Yep.
We actually have to sit down together in person and talk this out and work it out and a path forward.
Yep.
There are bad people on both sides of the spectrum that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Accountability, respect, all those things that need to happen. And unfortunately, we've let it go this far that we've let it go this far that it's become the animal that it has become.
Mm-hmm. And and I think, and I 100% agree with you. It kind of leads us into that next kind of talking point we were going to hit, is that change in the narrative. And I think social media. Look, if I didn't have dog hunting and if this podcast wasn't a thing, I would not have social media. I actually hate social media. I hate Facebook. I hate all of it. I can't stand any of it. I think it's not for the good. And it can be used in a bad way for both sides. I mean, heck, there's me and you've been emailing about a certain subject here in the past couple of days, and that was a terrible thing. That, like you said, it's a lot of houndsmen out there. I say houndsmen, we take that back. A lot of guys that run dogs that are putting videos out there that the antis are just going to be able to use, and it's like, what in the world are you thinking, dude?
When you see a guy running dogs and he's got a buck on the ground, the buck's still kicking, and the dogs are chewing on that deer. They didn't put that deer out of his misery. Right. That's not a good example for anybody. It gives hunting in general a bad image.
Right.
It gives everybody leverage to come after hunting in general.
Yep.
The other thing is when you have an individual out there confronting a landowner or other vice versa, and it makes it on social media, and they've edited it to the point where it makes it look like it's one-sided, like one person is the cray-cray, but nobody's talked about what led up to that situation.
Yep. Nobody wants to post the full videos.
Like you said, social media is it's a double-edged sword. It's good and bad because it puts it out there. You see it, and you're like, I can't believe this is happening. It goes back to that unbelievable stuff that we talked about. Right. But it also, you got to realize the technology has changed with land ownership too. The younger guys are more into tech. You got drones out there that can be used to take pictures. You've got trail cameras out there. You've got all this digital media that's out there, and now cell phone cameras. Like I wish cell phone cameras would have been a good thing back in 2019, affordable and stuff, because some of the stuff that would have been sent to me would have been handled earlier rather than 4 years later. Yeah. Right. But it comes down to, like I said, it does come down to this. You have to be situationally aware, just like I have to be situationally aware. I know what's going on my land 97% of the time. Right. Let's be real, And if the trail cameras ain't catching it and I'm not catching it, then I don't know what's going on. Right. But that's regardless of what I'm doing. I could be out there plowing a field, or I could be out there doing driveway work. Who's
Yeah.
to say I did and didn't do it if I didn't post it on social media or something like that?
Correct.
But
Correct.
but my point is, we all have done work without without that kind of technology.
Yep.
But it's so prevalent now. You really have to be on your toes.
Yep.
The bad, I won't use that analogy. Excuse me. I was going to say bad actors, but I'm not going to use that analogy. I'm going to do like the individuals that are not responsible for their own actions.
Yes.
And just choose to do what they're going to do. Could care less if there was a trail camera. They could care less until they get caught.
That's right. That's right.
All right. And
That's right.
they could care less if there's a posted sign. Really,
Yep.
in all reality, they could care less if there's a posted sign, a fence, or something like that.
Right.
Or there's a road. There's a public road that's supposed to not be impeded. They could care less about that.
Right.
They're going to do what they want to do. They have made social media statements saying they would do that.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Right.
You
right.
know,
and it's like we have a guy that he doesn't ever post it on social media, but he's got a block of land that butts up to one of our lease lands, and this just goes back to the I'll do whatever the heck I want kind of thing. He has a tripod stand that's set up on the edge, and he's gone through on this leased land and cut a strip out to where he can see it. He knows the dogs run through there. Mm-hmm. So in other words, he's shooting over his property line into our leased land as the dogs are coming by, and claiming that that's 100% he can do whatever the heck he wants to do. I'm like, that's not right, man.
No.
Like he's like, my stand's on my property. I'm shooting from my property. I'm like, still not right, dude.
No, it's
right.
not. But that's like a landowner blocking. All right, let's say you have an easement that goes to your hunting lease.
Right.
So the landowner's leased it. He's got that landowner that you're leasing that land from has an easement that goes right in that property. Mm-hmm. And another landowner who lives on that other property, on the property next to his, blocks that road off. Mm-hmm. He's wrong.
Yep.
'Cause
100%.
he's violating that easement agreement.
Yep. 100%.
You know,
100%.
so it goes both ways. Or the person chasing you down the road going, "Oh my God," you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Hey,
right. right.
Do you remember when we were younger? We put a deer in the back of a truck in the bed of a truck, tailgate down because that buck's sitting there, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I got me a deer, or I got me a doe." You know what I'm saying? And I'm show it off. And then they said, "Well, that's not. We don't want the kids to see that." And then all of a sudden, it became taboo to have that. You had to make sure your tailgate was wiped off a little bit, closed up, so somebody didn't get offended by seeing a dead deer.
Yep.
You know,
I remember, man. When I was growing up, it was our little country store. It was a check-in station. I mean, the thing to do was after you shot the deer, everybody went to the store. Everybody got to see your deer on the back of the dog box or on the tailgate of the truck. Yep. The owner of the store would come out with the old Polaroid pictures that printed them right there, and they take your picture and they post it up on the little cork board, and that was the thing, man. You had the date you killed the deer, the number of points, and who killed it, and how you killed it, and all that kind of stuff on there. And it was just, man, it was like a big brag board at the little country store.
Absolutely.
Non-existent no more.
But those stores don't exist anymore either.
Nope.
And that's what we have to realize. Times change.
Right. And that's, I think that really kind of coincides with the whole change in the narrative thing, And I've said this in another podcast. Would I love to go back and hunt like we did back in the 90s and, even into the early 2000s? I mean, I remember, I'm a 93 baby. So, I remember the late 90s and early 2000s. I was a kid, but I remember it because that was some of my favorite times was being out there with my dad and hunting. And man, there's so much land that we're just not allowed to hunt, and it was just so easy. There was no tracking collars, there was no GPS. There was, heck, most of our guys didn't even use beep collars. You saw somebody with an antenna on top of the truck, you're like, oh man, that dude's loaded. He must have a ton of money.
Absolutely.
So it was just me and my dad have always lived. Now I live closer to town, but I still have my property where I grew up. We always lived right in the middle of our hunting land. So it wasn't nothing for us to just go load the dogs up and dump them across the street back behind the house. It goes right back to our hunting land, and it's a straight shot. We had all kinds of permissions the whole way through. It wasn't no big deal, and now it's like we can still do that, and we're still able to do that. But if they get too far this way on this side, it's okay. They don't mind if they don't say nothing. They don't care. We've already talked to those guys, but we can't go back there and try to shoot it. You got to let it get through that block and get through this section, and then now we're back over here to where we need to be. It's all guys that don't mind them coming through. It's not like we're doing anything wrong by doing that. But it wasn't. We couldn't go in there and cut them off no more. Back then it was just, man, it was so easy. It was so just everybody got along with each other. You could. If the land, heck, there were so many times where landowners would see the hound, the dog trucks running by, and if they saw trucks running by, they went and grabbed their gun and their orange hat and ran into the backwoods and tried to get it their own self. And that's great. Do it,
It's good if it's on your land and they're running through, but I mean,
right.
I will say, when I grew up hunting and stuff, and I got really into it back in the 90s as well. We all knew each other.
Right.
That was years ago. We still had that store where everybody would congregate and say, all right, here you go. I killed this deer on it, like you said. There's the picture on the wall. Here's the proof in the pudding, so to speak.
And the lies commenced.
Yeah, absolutely. Tall tales would commence. Right. But everybody in that community knew one another.
Yep.
If you hunted there, you were from that community that hunted there. You didn't come from somewhere else and bring the attitude with it.
Yep.
I won't say entitlement. I'll say attitude. The attitude.
Yeah. I like that.
Right. The Hounds Tales podcast has teamed up with First Form Outdoors to get behind the hunters. Yes, that's right, the hunters. We as houndsmen put so much focus on our dogs that sometimes we forget to focus on our own selves and our health. Whether you're in the woods racing to get in front of that big buck chase or in the wire for 5 hours catching crossings up and down the path, we are constantly draining our bodies all day long. First Form offers energy drinks, hydration products, protein snacks, and other supplements to get us back up and going while we are doing what we love. Show yourself some love and visit firstform.com, and that's the number 1, STPHORM.com to check these guys out. And from here on out, at all hunts, I will have products available for purchase. If you have any requests that you see when you visit firstform.com, feel free to contact me and place an order, and we'll make that happen. Now, back to the episode.
But also, the other thing was most of those guys reached out and said, do I have permission to do this?
Correct.
They knew the regulations. You knew the regulations, because you were hunting too.
Right.
And most of those guys that did not have the collars on their dogs, when they ran those dogs, they treated it just like a deer drive.
Yep.
And they would put those guys out there, and they would cut them dogs off at certain points.
Right.
It was a drive. And that's what they used them for, just like a man drive. We've all done them. And I do have some experience with hound hunting. You have good people, and you got good people that will line up and stop the dogs, turn the dogs, do what they have to do, and control the dogs as much as possible. And that's what they used to do back in the day. And it's not, I'm not saying all of them did it. Some of them, but you didn't have the problems we have today.
Right.
And you don't have a lot of people that, and I won't say it's a culture thing, and I won't say it's a misunderstanding as much as it is people don't want their property trespassed on by people they don't know.
Right.
Well,
that reminds. I mean, it's a prime example of that is, and I don't mean to interrupt you. It's such a prime example of what you're talking about. There's a local farmer around here that for decades never cared. It was go in there, shoot it, do whatever you need to do. If I see y'all in there, that's fine. I don't care. Go ahead. And then one day he stopped. One of the I think it was the president at the time. He's like, I don't want nobody in there no more. And he's like, okay, did something happen? He goes, no, nothing happened. He said, I just don't know anybody anymore. He's like, it hasn't been the same. He's like, nobody's come up and said, hey, I'm this guy. I'm Mr. So-so. I hunt with the Reedy Creek Hunting Club, and, I just wanted to introduce myself. He's like, I'm watching people trucks I've never seen before. It's people I've never met before just going on my property, and I don't want that. He's like, so I'm just, the easiest thing to do is instead of saying, yeah, some of y'all can, some of y'all can't, I'm going to say none of y'all can. And that's just how it ended up.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, I've seen it where a hunt club will get permission to hunt on somebody's land, and the next thing you know, a different hunt club is in there hunting piggyback.
Right.
Because they see somebody else hunting in there, or they hear about the big buck that's on the land. They just show up.
Yeah.
And now you're assuming that they're members of that other hunt club that has permission to be there.
Right. Right.
And it becomes a big problem.
Yep. And, our club, we always run stickers on the back of our truck. We have a sticker that's a yearly sticker, and a lot of the landowners that we know are like, or that have had situations like that before. We tell them, like, look, if you don't see this sticker on the back of that truck, please call me and let me know, because that's not somebody supposed to be in there. We'll handle the situation. And that's what we do. It's luckily that's not something has happened very often, but I think it was only once it actually happened. They called us and said, hey, there's a guy in here, there's no sticker on the back of his truck, and it described the truck. We're like, nope, that's not us, but I know exactly who it is, and we went and talked to that club, and we got the situation handled.
And that's the way it should be, but
right.
We've talked about self-policing at one time.
Yes.
And we've talked about how that really, it works if you apply it.
Right.
But you have to apply it.
That's the problem.
You have to apply it.
Yeah.
And you can turn the other way, and I'm talking about both sides of the house.
Yeah, 100%.
You can turn the other way and look at the bad behavior and just go, all right, that's just that guy being a nut. Or that's his temperament. That's the way he is.
Yep.
Or, I know that guy tends to go off on to other people's property and just let people do. I mean, he just does what he wants.
Right.
And I'm saying this from both sides of the house. It's, and we can, but you accept that once you make that an accepted practice, it becomes that problem that festers, and we're dealing with it now.
Yep. It's ever since becoming a parent, I relate. And this is going to sound really bad, and I'm not trying to make this sound awful, but it coincides exactly with what you're saying. It's just like raising a child. If you tell a kid, if a kid throws something or draws on the wall, and you say, oh, that's just him being a kid. Oh, no, that's whatever, And that kid's going to learn that that's an accepted behavior. Yeah. And it's going to be the same way for young houndsmen that are out there, or guys that are just learning, or guys that have the wrong attitudes. When you're like, let me just turn, or even landowners, I'm not trying to single out, the houndsmen, but I use that as an example because I can speak on that. When you start turning the blind eye, or you say, oh, well, that's just that guy, he's just young, he's just a kid, if members of the club and like leaders of the clubs don't start holding those kind of things responsible, then it's all downhill from there. Yeah, it's all downhill.
If I had a landowner, a fellow landowner coming on my property driving an ATV, not a hunter, just a landowner, and he knows that, hey man, you're not supposed to do this, and I don't say nothing to him, what's going to happen? That guy's going to keep doing what he's doing.
Right.
But if I say something to him and he continues to do so, and that leads to another thing too, we have to be willing, as both sides of the house, have to be willing to call out the people who are causing the issues.
Yep.
And hold them accountable for what they do.
Right.
Like if you know there's a bad hunt club, for example, y'all are in the network, you know who you are, you know the good guys and the bad guys on that side of the house before hunting season even starts. Be on the watch out for them and self-police those guys, but hold them accountable. If you hear that such and such hunt club or a member of that hunt club by name has caused an issue, then self-police. Just like landowners should be like, if there's a landowner going out there and, doing something stupid, we should be saying the same thing. Hey, man, what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
You cannot do that.
Yep.
You know, it's all about accountability. It's
Yep.
all about responsibility.
Yep. And you know, everybody, and I hear it a lot, you know, that, and this is on both sides, that both sides just want to go hunt.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to go do it. Yes, we do. I just want to go hunt. I just want to go run my dogs. You know, when I go steel hunt, you know, it's not very often because I ain't got no patience. But whenever I do go steel hunting, I just want to go. I just want to go steel hunt. I don't want to have to worry about some person walking onto my property, not knowing that he's even supposed to be there or not supposed to be there.
Absolutely.
And you know, I don't want those things. You know, but you know, everybody says, "Oh, I just want to hunt," like we did back in the day. Like we did back in the day. Well, guess what? It's not back in the day no more.
No.
It's not back in the day.
It absolutely is not like that. And you know, the thing about it is, if these guys know, all hunters should know orange is a requirement.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Should know.
Right.
Right. So if you're in a large group of guys, or even singles, and you're hunting,
Yep.
and you're possibly crossing other people's property lines, and you're not wearing orange, I mean, you know, is that you're intentionally crossing on that property line? It comes into question. It raises a
Yep.
lot of red flags, especially if you got a firearm. What are
Right,
you doing
right,
here? That leads to more. It's
Yep.
do the right thing. It's not that hard.
Yep.
If I post my land and I have all the indicators, my driveway's right there. You drive by me, you see me, you know, stop and say, "Hey man, you know, I know your land is posted. I'll do what I can to stay off of it." Or if I have this dog run across from your property, can I come get it?
Right.
You know,
Right. Simple as
and,
that.
you know, I've recovered dogs that got out of the pen that's right down the road, called the owners. I mean, it's June. This
Yeah,
dog,
yeah.
you know, is out there. He's got his collar on with the brass plate. And I'm like, "Hey, man, your dog is out. I'll hold on to him. I got a bowl of water out there for him because it's June again, you know."
Right.
And
Right.
I'm sitting there with the dog so the dog doesn't wander off. And I mean, waiting for the owner to come. Somebody shows up to get the dog and go on about the business.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, it's as simple as that. It's the same common courtesy. If you see me out in the woods working my property, feel free to do that neighborly thing. Say, "Hey, man, how you doing? I'm such and such."
That's it.
You know,
That's it. Yep. That's it.
but
I mean,
there are
heck,
some people that will permanently burn bridges.
Yes.
And we have
Yep.
to understand that. You know,
Right.
we all know who they are, you know, on both sides of the house. Because
Yep.
we get into a situation where it escalates to the point where the extreme sides of both sides cause the problems to explode.
Correct. Yep. Correct.
And then we have, well, we want to ban this, or we want to
Right.
stop this, or we want to, you know,
Right.
no, we don't. I mean, you know, no. Nobody, you and I talked about this. We heard it
Yep.
both ourselves at the DWR meeting. Nobody talked about banning anything at that meeting.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nobody.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue that I have with that situation. Because we made progress there.
Yep.
We talked about being able to sit down as landowners, as hunters, and as the DWR guys, not in a meeting setting like that, not into something that's already high tension, but in a relaxed setting, sitting down and having a conversation, having a good dinner together,
Right.
or lunch,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
talking,
Yeah. Right.
and just talking and addressing the issues and the path forward. Because if
Right.
you want to hunt like the old days, you have to know who the people are that give you the permission to hunt, and you got to know who's coming on your land. It's a either way, you're both together, intertwined somehow,
Yep. Yep.
and
I-
we forgot that. Somehow
and-
we forgot
right.
that.
And that goes back like exactly like you just said. You know, if you want to be able to hunt like it was back in the day, then people need to start treating people like you did back in the day.
Yeah.
This whole sitting in the back and pointing fingers and posting on social media, though, nobody, like you said, nobody conversates. Now, I get it. You know, don't get me wrong. I don't know where time goes anymore nowadays. Like I felt like back when I was a kid, and of course I didn't have nowhere near responsibilities, but growing up, it seemed like, even looking at my dad, like my dad had plenty of time when he got off of work. He had time to stop at a guy's house and have a beer with him, or drink, drink a beer and just chit chat for a few minutes. Come home, mow the grass, take care of the dogs, chop a load of firewood, eat dinner, watch a couple shows, and it was only 8 o'clock by the end of all that. Now you get off of work and you go and stop somewhere and drink a beer, and when you get home, it's 8:30.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know where time goes anymore. You know what I mean?
We're so caught up on a lot of things, and we could go on for that one because it's technology.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. We have so many distractors that time just slips.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Everything takes priority. We're working longer because we're either working longer or we're working a schedule that conflicts with our after work schedule. And you don't take time for yourself until you decompress on the weekends, if you get a chance to do that because you're playing catch up.
Right.
If you're married, you got that honey-do list.
Yep.
Around hunting season, depending on what you're hunting, you got to get ready for that. If you're waterfowl hunting, you're getting your boat ready, you're getting all the other stuff ready, services done, trucks are getting done, kennels are getting clean. Yep. Everything takes your priority. When you have youngins, and we all know this because both of us are parents.
Right.
You got to take. If you don't spend time with your kids, you that's a priority right there.
That's it. I mean,
they grow up faster than anything else.
My kid's almost 3 years old, and I don't know where those 3 years have gone. It's crazy, man. But it's like, and you're right, and I'm a firm believer. I'm not a big don't get me wrong. I'm not saying mental health is not an issue and people don't need to pay attention to it. But I'm not one of those guys that preach that kind of thing. But today, this weekend, I got to the point. And I was like, I need a break. I got to take some kind of time to myself. And I was like, it's Martinsville weekend. I'm a big NASCAR fan. And I was like, it's Martinsville weekend. I was like, I'm going to sit down and watch the race. I haven't sat down and watched a race at home without any, doing anything else. Damn. I told the wife, I said, look, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch the race. Well, about halfway through, Daddy, come play. Daddy, sit in floor. Daddy, come do this. Daddy, come do this. And wife's like, well, we're really going to get this done. I'm like, all right, I got half a race in. That's fine. But it's so true. But, anyway, that's a rabbit hole. But
it's a good rabbit hole. It's a good rabbit hole. We all have to take that time to decompress.
Yep.
Even if it's 45 minutes to ourselves.
Right.
I'll go out. I go sit in the woods. I'll go and sit, take a walk around, wherever I'm at. Take a walk around and get some fresh air because that's the best thing to do in some ways.
Right. Yep.
But if you don't, this weekend has been. I agree with you. I was inflamed or enraged. I'm not enraged, but I was highly, highly disappointed with what I saw this weekend.
Yes. Yep.
Because I saw a lot of work go down the drain.
Correct. Everything that we're talking about on this is just right down, just flush.
I saw a lot of the stereotypes start to, in your head, just kind of start popping back up. Yep. And all of the division come back.
Right.
We cannot afford to be divided on any of this.
No,
we have to work together in order to preserve hunting or any outdoor recreation in Virginia.
Right. And I think that's... Go ahead. Keep going.
Because what I was going to say was we're conservationists too. We're habitat managers. We have as much invested in our wildlife as the hunters do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
On both sides.
Right.
Our tax dollars go in the same thing your tax dollars go in. When I buy a license, regardless of what that license is, that money goes in the same pot that yours goes into when you buy licenses.
Right. Right.
We really have to start working together.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to finish up part 1 of this 2-part episode. I want to shoot a big shout out to Mr. Carter for coming on. I think these kind of things, like I said at the very beginning of this, I think these kind of things are going to be very beneficial to houndsmen and landowners alike. We made a lot of good points, and I think we're going to carry that on into the next episode. I know we're going to carry that on into the next episode. So thank y'all so much for listening, guys. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you like what you heard, share away. Let's get this stuff out there, guys. The more people to see it, the more people to hear it. That's how we got to do it. We got to promote relationships between landowners and houndsmen. This is just an easy way to do it, guys. So let's make this happen. Thank y'all so much for listening, guys. Y'all tune in next week for the last part of this episode. And like always, guys, happy hunting.